Good morning. Oh, goodness. The audio is good. Good job, Matt. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm Patricia Teffenhart, and I have the pleasure of serving as the inaugural Executive Director for the Division of Violence Intervention and Victim Assistance, or VIVA. Welcome to our third annual Gun and Community Violence Prevention and Response Symposium. Just 2 years ago, we held our first CBVI symposium virtually. Back then, VIVA was myself, the then new director of the Office of Violence Intervention and Prevention, Stephen Campos, and Mary Ellen Bonspur and the rest of our team at the Victims of Crime Compensation Office. We had 2 offices out of our 4 for which directors hadn't even yet been identified. We were small but mighty, slowly and strategically building the foundation for where we are today. The VIVA team, now 70 people strong, is diverse in its areas of expertise. We come from the communities we serve. We have worked in the organizations we fund. And we bring those perspectives and experiences to work every day, always looking for survivor-centered, trauma-informed ways to strengthen New Jersey's public safety infrastructure. And at the heart of all of our work is the knowledge that we can't create the safer, more equitable New Jersey about which we dream without working with all of you. And that's really the theme for today's convening. At the heart of the CBVI work is an understanding and appreciation that we are stronger together. Communities benefit from the strategies implemented by grassroots CBI organizations working as a complement to our public safety strategy with traditional law enforcement. To be clear, I don't need to tell any of you this work is not easy. Because while some of our colleagues in this room and across the country have been doing this work for quite some time, the concept is still new for many communities. And I know this will come as a huge surprise, but sometimes collaboration is tricky. Where does my work begin and end? Where do you pick up as a complement to my work? What about when tensions are high? What about? And the truth is that even with the best planning and the best intentions, at the end of the day, collaboration is a constant choice. But the long-term benefits of choosing to collaborate time and time again, that's where we get the payout. And we've seen it work with other types of responses to support victims of violence and domestic and sexual violence response teams. And in those cases, we're decades into implementing this collaborative model. And you know what? Sometimes it works better than others. But when it works, survivors benefit from the multidisciplinary expertise that can change their lives. An advocate can help them safety plan, connect them with additional support services, talk to them about the process of undergoing a forensic medical exam, understand how to get a restraining order, and even support them and their children moving into emergency shelter. Law enforcement can remove folks from a lethal situation, walk someone through the criminal justice process, and hold accountable individuals who have caused harm. When these teams show up and work collaboratively to support someone who's experienced an act of interpersonal violence, we help them make informed decisions about next steps, we reduce the long-term impact of their trauma by connecting them to services, and we make communities safer by reducing the chances of repeat and escalatory violence. When we center the needs of people we serve them better. So for all of us in this room, let's continue to build upon these principles and make a recommitment every day to work together with this in mind. Before I turn things over to Attorney General Platkin, I want to again thank all of you for being here, not just today, but every day, not just in this room, but on the blocks, the streets, and the communities in which you invest your time, talent, and resources. I want to thank you to our comms team for all you do behind the scenes to make days like this possible. I want to thank you to our community-based colleagues in the room who are not shy about sharing their real-world experiences to inform our work. Thank you to the VIVA team for being here today and for all you do every day. Thank you to Teresa Hilton, my colleague and thought partner who leads the Division of Criminal Justice. And of course, thank you to Attorney General Platkin and First Assistant Lindsay Rotolo for creating VIVA and for your unwavering commitment to this work. Today, you'll hear from the Attorney General, followed by friends and colleagues from across New Jersey who share our vision for a safer New Jersey and work tirelessly to actualize it. It's a pretty exciting day, and we're really glad you're here. If you'd now join me in welcoming Attorney General Platkin to the stage.
Good morning. All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank Patricia. I'm going to just, before I get into anything, if you are in Viva, if you work in Viva, can you please stand up? Can we give them a round of applause? And I wanted them to stand up. You guys can have a seat now. Because I wanted you to see at what Patricia just talked about. Like, when you start something, it takes some time to grow it and to build it. And I've now sort of been through a few cycles of starting things in government, and it's amazing. It's amazing what we've been able to build through Viva. And look, like, I always feel you can talk about your ideas and your priorities and the issues you care about all the time. Show me who's actually doing the work, right? Show me the resources that you're putting in place. Show me the people that you're putting in place. Show me how you're empowering them. And that determines whether you're going to actually have an impact or you're not. And so when we started Viva, the whole idea, which did start with Patricia and Stephen, small but mighty crew, and a great partnership with the Division of Criminal Justice, and has just expanded even dramatically under Director Teresa Hilton's tenure, and I thank DCJ for that work. But the whole idea was that we were going to put the voices of victims and survivors of violence front and center when we are thinking about solutions to those problems. That we're not going to ignore the voices of community and people who have lived through these traumas when we're trying to prevent new cycles. Seems pretty basic, but it's not historically how it was done. And so all of the work that we've done over the past, now nearly 3 years, has been on that, built on that concept of listening, being informed by different perspectives, and trying some new approaches. I was also involved in a similar way now 6 years ago when we first started. I was in a different role. I was in the governor's office when we started talking about funding community and hospital-based violence intervention work. Again, not, I don't think, a revolutionary concept to empower communities to respond to violence in ways that actually work to prevent it, to reach folks who otherwise are difficult to reach, to tap into reservoirs of trust that already exist, to use people's lived experiences in ways that can help us prevent new cycles of violence. In 2019, when these conversations were getting going, the number of dollars in the state, and I know this room knows this, dollars in the state budget that supported either hospital-based or community-based violence intervention work was zero. Zero. Started originally at the hospital-based side with VOCA funding, federal funding, to support hospital-based violence intervention work. And it has grown now into what is now the biggest investment in violence intervention work at the community level of any state on a per capita basis in the country, period. Well over $100 million over the past 5 years have been invested in this work. And why are we doing that? We're doing it because of what I said before, because if we want to treat gun violence like it is, which is an epidemic, single biggest cause of death for children in America. There's a lot of talk about parents' rights and parent concerns about kids, and I say that as a father of 2 kids. And let me tell you, if we were to say anything else was the number one cause of death in the country, we would be throwing everything we have for kids. We'd be throwing everything we have at stopping it. We would. We would be following all of the evidentiary conclusions about how you can address a problem in ways that save lives. For gun violence, for whatever reason, we can all have our opinions, for a long time, we didn't do that. We didn't follow what people's experiences showed. We didn't follow what the evidence showed. And here in New Jersey, we have said, we're going to do that. We're going to take a holistic approach to combating gun violence. We're going to listen to people and bring them into the solution. We're not just going to treat them as part of the problem. And so look at what's happened. Yes, we continue to rely on some of the best law enforcement work in the country when it comes to combating gun violence. And I thank all our law enforcement partners who are here. But we use an intelligence-based approach. We don't drag nets through whole communities and think that's an effective form of law enforcement. We've built an probably the most incredible network of intelligence for law enforcement in the country. I created the first office of its kind in the country to hold bad actors in the firearms industry. I know Pastor Taylor has been a huge supporter of this work. He's hiding in the back, but I want to thank him. To hold bad actors in the firearms industry accountable. Not revolutionary stuff. We do this for every other industry. You break laws in our state, the Attorney General sues you. And we deliver relief to our residents. But again, something that really hadn't been done. We're the first state in the country to have an office like that. And we've held bad actors in the firearms industry accountable who are profiting off of bloodshed in our communities, who've done everything from allowed 20 firearms to be stolen from their window in their shop because they didn't bother to follow regulations securing them, to selling thousands of rounds of AR-15 ammo without so much as asking for an identification, to suing one of the largest gun manufacturers in the world, the first time an AG has ever done this, against Glock, for knowingly selling firearms that in a matter of minutes can be converted into machine guns, unleashing unprecedented carnage in our communities. And we created Viva and OVIP and invested heavily in community-based responses to violence. And guess what? It's worked. It's worked. 2 years ago, when I was here, we talked about getting under 1,000 shootings in state history, for the first time in state history. And people, even I wasn't so sure we could do it. We had 924 people shot in 2023. I appreciate the applause, but I think we all agree we hate applauding for anybody being shot. But that was 600 fewer than we had in 2012. And so what did we do? Last year we said, because Lindsay's crazy, we said we're going to get under 800 people shot. So even I'm like, guys, I like to under-promise and over-deliver. 778 people were shot last year. 778. Fatalities dropped by 20%. This year, we're about a third below where we were last year at this time. Okay? These numbers show what we're doing is working. It's working in every community, in every part of our state. Everywhere where we are investing in this work, crime and violence is going down. And those numbers, as you all know all too well, are not abstract. They're not like baseball statistics. They're people's lives. When I say that last year, about half the number of people were shot than were shot just about a decade earlier in this state, think about that. That's hundreds and hundreds of people statistically that we know. We don't know who they are, we don't know where they are, but we know that had we not been doing this work, they would have been in harm's way. And those are birthday parties and funerals and weddings, birthday parties and weddings instead of funerals. And there's no other line of work where we can do that. And I know it wouldn't have been possible without the folks in this room and your partners throughout the state. And so I will sing from the mountaintops about the importance of this work. And yes, when the president and this administration unceremoniously tries to cut funds for this work, I will stand up and say what you are doing is making people less safe, period. Because what we've seen is historic reductions in violence that, oh, by the way, coincides with our investment in this work. Shocking when you bring communities to be part of the conversation. Raise your hand if you're from a community that actually wants more violence. Next time somebody raises their hand to that question will be the first I've ever seen. Everybody wants safer communities. And when we empower people to be a part of that process and work with law enforcement, we can be more effective. Which is what we are announcing today. Because 2 years ago, we launched something that has also never been done in the country. I like doing things and hiring people who like doing things that have never been done before. No state, we, as I said, are at the forefront of investing in violence intervention work. It's happening in some communities across the country as well, which is great. I hope to see it in every community in America. But no state has said, now that we're investing in it, what's the shared understanding between law enforcement and violence intervention professionals? How do we build sort of a shared set of rules and mutual trust to do this work even more effectively? Because what we had seen, look, like anything else, you grow new investments, state or whatever, and there's, growing pains, and you have to work through them together, and you have to build trust, especially build trust across relationships where historically there hasn't been often a lot of it. And so 2 years ago, we created a working group, and I'm really grateful for everybody who participated, and some of you are here. Law enforcement professionals, community violence based violence intervention professionals, faith leaders, community leaders. And we said, we are going to sit at the table and come up with shared understandings of how we can work together. And that takes time. It would have been very easy to have a meeting, come up with some stuff that said not a whole lot, put it out in a press release and wiped our hands and moved on. That probably could have been done in 30 days. We took 2 years. And I recognize that sometimes people say, well, why is it taking so long? Why is it taking so long? It's because building trust is hard, and listening and engaging can be hard. And I was not going to rush this because I wanted to make sure we got it right. And I'm really proud. I know we have a QR code. That's partly because, we would probably have to cut every tree in New Jersey if we printed this for all of you people. But I hope you take a look at it, because the work that was done, and I really want to thank Patricia and Stephen and Dan and all of our participants, especially those coming from places that historically didn't sit across the table with law enforcement and vice versa, and be willing to bring their credibility to this work and roll up their sleeves when it's much easier to go in your corners and throw stones than it is to sit at the table and say, how do we make things better? And I'm really proud of this group, and I'm proud of our office, and I'm very proud of this report, which, as it says, is a playbook for how we can have an impact and save even more lives. And I hope folks across the country, and I know they will look at this and say, this is how you do it. You invest, you build trust, you listen, you work together, and you inform policies. That's what Viva was created to do, and this is the latest and greatest example of that. We are also today, I have to thank Dr. Golden, who's here in the Office of Justice Data. We're also unveiling a new dashboard that we worked on with Office of Justice Data and the state police to put our gun violence statistics out for the public to see. By the way, it's orange. No accident there. Not the data, like the data's black, but you can read the text. It'd be pretty hard if you had to read a bunch of orange text. But I liked it visually. It's got an orange banner. But it's really helpful to be as transparent as we can about what we're seeing so folks in communities can assess it. It builds on the concealed carry permit dashboard that we put out after Bruin, again, to show our partners and the public what is happening. I think it's important that people can see it so that we can respond to it. If we're ignoring the data, we do it at our own peril. So all of this work is about saving lives. And those of you all have been in this effort and this fight for a long time. Whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're a community-based partner, whether you're in state government, you've been in this work for a long time. I have too. I may not look it, but as some of you know, this was the first issue that got me interested in public service back when I was in high school. I went door to door to advocate for stronger gun safety regulations. By the way, for the record, I didn't note this. We have the strongest gun safety laws in America. We've successfully defended them all in court. I have to give our team a shout out for that. But I will be honest with you that now in more than 2 decades of doing this work, I'm not sure I believed deep down the progress that we're seeing was possible. There's some really tough days when you do this work. Last Saturday would have been the 13th birthday of Sequoia Bacon-Jones, who was shot and killed, 9-year-old girl down the street from my office, as some of you know, in Trenton, in the courtyard of her apartment complex, just a few weeks into my term. It was, I'll be honest, one of the hardest cases I've ever seen in my life. And it sticks with me. She wanted to be a law enforcement officer. And she was killed before her 10th birthday by a single stray bullet. And so that day was hard. Pastor Taylor was there with me that day. Mike Grillo, who joined our office from Mercer County Prosecutor Onifree at the time, they prosecuted that case. That day was really hard. And days like that are hard, and you've all experienced those days. But I also last week had a really amazing day where we in Trenton Central High School worked for the last year and a half. A year and a half ago, I came into the office and I said, we talk so much about guns killing kids. I'm not listening to any kids. And so we got a group together in Trenton Central High School. And for the last year plus, I've gone and met with them pretty much every month and listened. And I've done it alongside the Trenton Restorative Street Team, the Safe Passage Group. We're not going to talk about my push-up contest outside the high school. That didn't go so well for me. It's a thing of legend, apparently, at the high school now. And here's what I want to end with, because this is proof positive of the work that we're doing. This group of kids, understandably, when I first walked in, they didn't have a whole lot of trust in me. They didn't really care about the fact that I was the Attorney General. But having the Restorative Street Team there with me, I could see the trust with them. Makima, who's from that team, was a high school basketball legend at Trent, literally a legend. If you don't know her, her banner's in the gym. And those kids worshipped her. And they listened to her. Sitting next to an Attorney General. Didn't care about me, cared a whole lot about what she had to say. And about a year ago, these kids really weren't willing to open up and say a whole lot. And then last week, based on their own idea, we held a mental health symposium. Many of you were there, where 4 students in the class got up and talked about their own personal struggles with mental health and advocated for their friends to seek help and built community in ways that I probably wouldn't have thought was possible 6 or 8 months ago. And so I just say that because it's a very real and tangible experience that I've had where you can see the progress that you're making and you can see the impact and the trust and relationships that folks have. And so I thank you all for doing this work alongside us. I thank you all for trusting us enough to partner with us, for telling us how we can improve, which you do quite a bit, and I appreciate that, genuinely. And for believing that these, and some dark days, that we can continue to see these numbers go down. And I know no one in this room will rest until it's 0, but don't mistake that challenge for the fact that we have seen unprecedented progress in this state in ways that the rest of the country is looking at and asking, how are you doing that? How are you doing that in New Jersey? How are you cutting the number of shootings in half? How are you still going down year over year? And the answer, very simple, is because of you all and the work that you're doing and the partnership that we have. And I'm deeply, deeply grateful for it. So I thank you all. I'll turn the mic back over to Patricia. I wish you a very productive day. I'm sorry. I feel like an idiot. I forgot my orange. I need an orange attire for June. But keep up the great work. Keep up the partnership. It's saving lives, and there's nothing that's more important. Thank you.
We're going to grab a picture with everybody. If you're a member of the work group, could you please join us on stage for a picture with the Attorney General? John's like, I wasn't planning on having to get up here. And to the Attorney General's point, it's June, so a lot of folks are actually out with events in their own communities. So the work group report is now live. If you click on the QR code, you can see it. We don't want you to dig into it during our incredible agenda for the day. But as you'll see, there are 18 incredible colleagues that are a part of this work group, and we're excited to be here. I know, I just moved it, I promise. Oh, man. Dun, dun, dun.